There we go. Hi, it's Mark Cleghorn here for the Photographer Academy, and welcome to a brand new series in our 10 Steps to Starting. So this one starts off with a boudoir photography business, and this will take us, of course, right into 2021. So for those wedding photographers who are looking to do something different during 2021 because of limitations or whatever it be, then this could be the one for you anyway. In these sessions, we're going to keep them down to the full hour as our live at lunch, including the questions. So as Jay's already said, get the questions into the question panel as soon as you can, so we're kind of being able to answer them live and things ready. Okay, so in our 10 steps, I've split it down again for you. Okay, so we're going to be looking at shooting and styling, which is today, of course, and an introduction. Basically, by the end of the 10 sessions, it's a complete kind of model, as it were. So if this was a book, you know, it would basically kind of break in all the little chapters down and so on with it, yeah? So shooting and styling, which is a generalization today and an introduction, and taking some of the fear factor away from boudoir as well for you. Lighting for boudoir is the next session, and that looks a little bit more at how, what, and why and where to create it. We'll touch on a little bit of that today as well. Props and posing. Now, for many of you, posing the boudoir will be something that you absolutely fear, but I'm going to try and take that out of it for you with a bit of a guide of the poses and everything else with it. Jay, before I forget, is there an app still available, and is there a film to go with that? It goes back quite a long time ago on Academy, to be honest, and we were photographing Portia in a hotel. We're going to see a few of the images today. I wonder if you could find those films and just put the link in the chat panel, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Brilliant. We're going to be looking at what and how to show on a website, and basically how the basic marketing will actually work for you. Give you a guide on what to wear, not for you, for the client, of course. Then we're going to be looking at products and pricing, specifically of how much you should charge and why. Then we're going to be using a shoot, and we're going to be using the hotel as a bit of a guide, several hotels, several shoots, in fact, because I thought that might be a little bit more applicable for many of you, especially if you're a wedding photographer looking to actually enter into the world of boudoir. So obviously using the likes of a hotel or even the client's own home themselves and things really. Then we're going to be looking in studio at the fuller figure woman, and we'll be talking about the lighting, the set, and everything else with it and things really. So can you see what I'm doing? I'm kind of using the hotel as a bit of a guide for the bridal kind of element. Then we're using the fuller figure as a studio boudoir business. And then we're going to be looking at the things to attract in and the possibly ideas that we can be doing with a younger type of boudoir kind of clientele. And then, of course, without doubt, we're going to be looking right at the end, the last session, where we're going to be looking at the sales room and how to actually maximize and how to actually sell to the client and what to sell to them as well. Right. So today, obviously, we're talking about shooting and styling. So let's answer the big questions first. Can you make a living out of boudoir photography? The definitive answer is yes, as long as you don't think it's photographing models, okay? So even though most of the time on the Academy when you see me shoot, I'm shooting with a model, and that is because obviously we need to shoot and they need to be creating some really great images kind of every time I take a photograph, instead of actually being able to gently repose, reprop for what I would say is a normal client. Obviously, for me, the majority of a boudoir client would be 45 to 65 years of age. And that doesn't mean that we can't get models who are in that age bracket, because of course we do. However, when we're usually kind of doing it for the Academy, we are looking at the semi-pro to pro kind of level of training of where we're kind of basing it from. So if you're going to make money out of boudoir photography, the majority of the time, it's not going to be from any type of model. It's going to be any type of real woman from the age of 18 to, you know, any ages, as it were, any figure size and so on. So realistically, if you're training in the world of photography, and I suppose when we get to the shooting studio, when we're looking at fuller women, of different age groups. Really what we're going to be looking at is actually how we can animate the body, how we can change the pose in to actually best reflect them. As far as if you are photographing models and so on with it, you're probably going to be limited in how much that you can physically earn. And I would say that when you're kind of beginning in photography, boudoir photography or anything to do with that, you're probably going to be paying models for the beginning. As your experience grows, as you become a better photographer, as you become more a demand in a kind of a boudoir or a lingerie photographer, then obviously you might even have some models willing to work with you on a TF basis, or a time for basis. And then eventually, if you become exceptional or you become published often, then you will have perhaps models paying you to actually shoot them. But really what we're talking about in this series is business. So that means we're going to be looking more at women who are willing to actually pay for boudoir photography rather than models. Okay, so that's number one on the question, can I make a living out of boudoir photography? The definitive answer is yes. Obviously, the longer you do it, the more money you should be earning. The better you are, the more money you'll earn. Second, do I need a studio? Absolutely not. However, what I wouldn't do is be operating from a bedroom in my own home. Not even if my partner would agree to it and so on, I wouldn't be doing that. That's just not me. I always think about the security and the comfortability of the client before anything else. As I've been a specialist in female photography for pretty much from day dot, so when I got into photography as a kind of a keen amateur, really straight away, you know, it was an excuse to actually photograph pretty girls, ask them out on a date, and all those kind of things as you do as a 16-year-old, yeah. But when you actually start to be a professional photographer, as I did, you know, from the age of 18, when I went to work for a photographer, then I realized it's a different kind of professionalism, it's a different kind of criteria. And as far as do I need a studio, it's more professional. Doesn't mean you have to have it. There's other options for you. Obviously, you could photograph in the client's own home. That brings with it, especially I believe if you're a male photographer, I think it brings in a different kind of criteria of safety for you and for the client. A hotel is an easier option because it's a neutral ground. However, this can be very, very expensive from the day one, unless you've built up a great relationship with a hotel. Especially, I suppose, because of all the restrictions during the COVID-19 and the lockdowns, restricted usage and so on, you might find an ability to be able to actually rent a suite or a room in a hotel, even though it's officially closed for business purposes, and you might be able to do a deal. So you're probably in a time and a place, as long as clients are not being restricted on using your services, you might be able to use locations that are really out of the kind of usage at any stage and things like that. So definitive answer, do I need to actually have a studio to shoot boudoir? No, you don't, but obviously it would make it a lot easier and a safe zone for you and for the client. As some of you will know, our Studio 2, that when we moved into the church and we did the church development, Studio 2 was originally called Changing Room, so we would actually change it around every 6 to 8 weeks. But in fact, it has predominantly become our boudoir room, both for training purposes, for filming purposes, and for my client purposes as well. So we'll be taking a look at how I use Studio 2 when we get into more of the shoots. Okay, so let's answer 4 definitive questions as we get into the shooting and styling, of course. Where should I shoot? Well, basically, if I'm using a location with window light, I will go for window light before anything else. If I am working in a dark room, whether it's a studio or a hotel, I will then obviously have to actually refer to using either strobe, i.e. flash, or LEDs. Because of the great the camera ISO quality nowadays, LED becomes very, very usable. In fact, one of the films that Jay's going to put the link into the films for you is kind of shooting in a hotel and just using the accent light as LED, in fact. So that will give you kind of some ideas. But I want to be shooting near the light source, especially if it's in window light, or using some form of light as backlight, whether it's going to be an accent light like LED or it's going to be strobe. How do I prepare a client for the session? Lots of information, lots of clear information, and making sure they're going to bring the right variety of lingerie in, as well as the skincare that you need them to do in preparation for the session. We don't want them to just think to, jump in the shower, come with your hair wet, blah, 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 and you haven't been looking after your body hydration-wise for about 2 or 3 days before they're shooting things ready. So all the little bits of advice that we want to be giving to them is all in our preparing the client for the session brochures and so on that we kind of send out to the client. How much do I charge for a shoot? This is obviously how long's a piece of string. Some of you will charge a little, some of you will charge a lot. If I'm going to do a makeover or hair inclusive with the session, that is going to be a much more expensive shoot price than it would be for a basic session. So I do have a style that is basically based on a promotion. So it means I don't really need to do hair and makeup. I can kind of go straight into the boudoir shoot without the cost of that. But obviously if I'm having to bring a stylist in, I need to facilitate that within the cost itself. So you'll probably find yourself going to charge as an offer something like £49, £59, going up to the full charge price of about £200 to £250 for a shoot, especially if you're having to hire a hotel suite for the day. While I'm speaking about how much to charge if you're going to hire a hotel suite, obviously in the present climates of having to change all the bed linen, whether you're going to be in the bed or not, as far as the client is concerned, you need to obviously price that in with the job, because they're probably going to do a small charge in changeover between clients. We've always included it to make sure that there is a bed change in the bedroom set, no matter what. So you shouldn't be using the C19 of putting that in as protocol. It should be a part of your cleanliness protocol, no matter what. So how much are you going to charge? Anything from about 50 quid going up to about £250 as a standard for your professional fee, and depends on then what you're going to obviously offer the client for sale. As far as what they're going to want to buy from you more than anything else is going to be print rather than big images for the wall. So as long as what you're charging for doesn't include a kind of a loose prints or digital files, then obviously there's more money to be made. If you're a bit silly and you include some of those digital products or prints within your professional fees, you're going to find that you've got very little to actually sell on. How do I market for boudoir? Well, as I mentioned straight off the gain, if you're a wedding photographer, you naturally have 25 to 30 brides in a year as a minimum anyway. If you're a busy photographer and you're shooting about 100 weddings a year, whether it's by yourself or you're employing other people, then you'll obviously have a much big kind of group of kind of clientele. Remember that most brides usually have one mature, if not two mature kind of bridesmaids or maids of honor. So that basically straight away opens up your marketing even more. Even as a non-wedding photographer, sorry, just cleaning my glasses, as a non-wedding photographer, you could be using a boudoir as a bit of an experience for the girls and their kind of hen do and so on with it, if your studio facilities kind of suit. So lots of ways besides for the website and general social media marketing as well, of course. Okay, so where should I shoot? Let's talk about the studio first. The reason that I opt for a studio more than anything else is because of the availability, the lack of cost, and basically the very quick changeover between clients. So realistically, you can have one client in makeup and hair, or you can get one client getting kind of changed, ready, whilst I'm finishing off or I'm just beginning to actually shoot with another client. So you've always got a kind of a little bit of a lap over. When you tend to work from a hotel, obviously the facility that you've got probably won't accommodate having a makeup area and a separate bedroom or lounge area for you to shoot in. Obviously, if your budget can be done, so in other words, if you can shoot 3, 4, 5 sessions in a day, and you've got the use of a huge bedroom suite within a hotel where the rooms are segregated off, it will allow you for one client being in preparation while another client is being shot and things really. So it is basically the ability is there, but how kind of easy is it to do? In studio, of course, I can pretty much control everything in the room, from a window light any time of day to the controlled kind of look-in hotel kind of suite or a bedroom suite that you can set up even in the smallest of spaces. Because of the lockdown and the limited training that we can actually offer as Mark Cleghorn Photography or the Experience Group during 2021, we're going to be using quite a lot of filming and kind of live training within Studio 2 itself. So try and pay attention to all our boudoir training more and more through 2021. Studio, as I said, allows me not only to actually have an everyday, any time of day window light kind of setup, but it allows me as well to actually bring that little bit of Hollywood kind of lighting into the room as well. I can move from studio strobe flash, or I could go to LED, or I can actually go to the likes of even speed light, and even going into a tungsten lighting scenario if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. Studio just allows me versatility, practicality, maximizing the hours, and allows me to actually create in my own space. Where a hotel and a client's home wins is that opulence is already there without any real cost to you initially. So fancy furniture, mirrors, bedding, kind of the lighting, the room lights, the wallpaper, the carpet, all the tones, yes, that we want are basically already there for us. We're not having to kind of pay for it. Studios that are dedicated just to boudoir and they have extensive different room sets will either be more of a commercial building where every room set is divided, or it could be even a kind of a takeover of a shop premises with perhaps multiple rooms upstairs, and that they can turn each different one into a different theme and so on. There really are some great films on the Photographer Academy in training, as well as live shoots with clients for you to go and watch. So if you haven't actually bought into the Photographer Academy yet, as the business level, you'll be able to actually go in there and actually watch a lot of the boudoir kind of training straight away as well. It could be an essential part of your business change through to 2021, of course. So the good news about the hotel, it brings a lot of things with it. The bad news about working in a client's home, you might be really, really stuck to bad taste or very bad light. If I'm working in a client's home, and I've only done it twice, okay, really what I'm looking for is photographs in advance so I can see how their room is done. I've worked a lot in clients' homes for bridal kind of getting ready. So if I use that as the idea of that is what the kind of the Joe Public's bedroom is going to be, then you're going to know the limitations are going to be size, and you're not going to get like enough room for a king size bed and space all around and near the light source, etc. So we want to be making sure that when we are working with a client's home, we want to see what is there. We also want to see what bedding they've got, because a lot of these things are going to really kind of add and change to the whole effect. Whether I'm working in a hotel or in a client's own home, though, in addition to what is at hand, I will always take along quite a lot of material to soften things down or to change the look and feel to the room if it so needs that kind of restyling to kind of create that different kind of feeling, as I say. So as far as where and why and what is concerned, don't worry if you haven't got a studio. You can work on location, as I mentioned already. You just need to actually prepare yourself. As far as the lighting in hotel or in a client's home is concerned, I really want to be working with natural light before anything else. Obviously, reflectors go without saying, but I really want to try and take some artificial light in with me as well. The likes of LEDs specifically nowadays will kind of bring the room alive. Using the likes of 400, 800 ISO kind of will really lift the room no matter what. Big tip though, especially if you've got any form of room light in the set, try and switch on all the room lights and all the lamps no matter what. We'll cover that when we're in the hotel shoot. So in the kind of the shooting and styling element, these are kind of the 7 real things that you need to kind of pay attention to in the shooting and styling element. The first thing is obviously, what is the location we're going to be working in? Control that location if possible, and control it to your styling as well. If not, you're going to find yourself from time to time really struggling. And you might find it very easy. However, some photographers, especially when they're unused to actually creating boudoir or lingerie-based photography, I don't want you panicking. I want you giving over to the client a great confidence, a good kind of atmosphere, and not feeling a little bit frustrated because it's not going your way. So put yourself into a vicinity or location that you know is going to work to your strengths and not your weaknesses. Lighting wise, as I said, try and keep it as simple as you can. Even when you're working in studio, even with lots and lots of flash all around, you know, accessories and things, try and minimize the look, and where possible, try and get the light coming in from behind. Now, a couple of weeks ago on Academy Live, we were photographing lingerie in studio, I think. Oh, no, we weren't on Academy Live, sorry. We were actually photographing a more Hollywood glamour kind of thing. But we have recorded some film ready for Academy that's going to be released in the next few weeks or months. I'm not sure when that is. But as far as the lighting is concerned, you'll see it kind of coming in from behind. Do you know what? I thought I've actually got that ready for us. This is that shoot. I thought it was actually on Academy, but I've just realised it's not. But this was using boudoir in a very, very small space. So, Jay, I know this was planned to go live for next year, but perhaps we could.
It is.
This is live already.
One of the shoots was done specifically for Academy. They went live last week. Shooting boudoir, lingerie to nude is already on the Academy.
Brilliant. I didn't realise that. I'm sorry. I thought this small boudoir is the one I was mentioning today. That was all.
Oh, I'm not sure if that one is, but there was one specifically made for the Academy on that filming day that is live already, but it might not be that session. I don't know. I'll have to have a look.
Okay, but perhaps we can escalate this one anyway, because this is really where to start with boudoir, pretty much working with one light coming in from the background and then actually just minimizing what you can physically do. And you can start this off in basically a 9 foot by 9 foot space. So absolutely no excuses. And you can even see from, even though this is 2 lights set up here, you can see all the lighting stands, just some IKEA netting, basically a beauty dish being used for some illumination where it's switched on or not, and then obviously another light off towards the side to give the mood and the tone and so on. All right, so again, this small boudoir would be really, really good at what you're doing. Makeup wise, as I mentioned already, I would usually bring a makeup artist in. Obviously, if you're hiring a model, that's a different thing altogether, because they'll usually be doing their own makeup. Just make sure it's clear to them that you need it for professional usage. In other words, you're going to be using these images to promote your photography, so they need to make sure they've got all their hair done, all the makeup done fully, or allow them time to actually fully finish once they arrive with you. So obviously, if you're booking a model from 10 o'clock, is that a 10 o'clock arrival or is that a 10 o'clock start in studio? Be very, very clear with it. So if it's a client for us and we're doing a makeover, Whereas the client would be booked in for 10 o'clock, that would be the makeover would start at 10, but we still ask the client to actually arrive at 15 minutes beforehand. What that basically means then, they're going to be in studio with me on about 45 minutes following the makeup start. Color tones, I mentioned that already as far as the room set is concerned, especially when working in a hotel or in a client's home. But that's where I use a lot of netting, a lot of drape, so I can actually color tone to what the customer has as far as their lingerie is concerned. And this is allowing me to actually bring all the warmth, all the tonality, so it all kind of fits together. As far as the color tones are concerned, I would prefer to actually keep to a very glamorous kind of golds and silvers and so on. Be careful that not much of the light is bounced off the gold and goes onto the client's face, because obviously that is going to create more of a yellow or jaundice effect. So be very careful if you are trying to white light, even though in the post-production we've got a little bit of control, we need to think about it photographically. As far as the kind of the color tones, then the blues, the purples, the kind of the greens and so on, I like the blues and the purples, but I'll avoid the greens. That's just a personal taste. I like, though, more the oranges, the yellows, the reds. I think they kind of really fit in and things, but finding out from the client in advance what kind of color tones they really like, and then obviously assessing their flesh color to see which is the kind of the best for them, and obviously what they're bringing in with them. We'll talk about that another time. Lingerie wise, we always try and encourage a variety. But again, those with a fuller figure, we need to actually have the likes of an all-in-one perhaps. And basically we have advice for all types of women, all sizes of women. They know what they wear as a rule, but by kind of pointing the basic out for them, it just makes sure that they know in advance what is the best thing to be bringing in. We've never bought lingerie in for our clients to wear. I know that some specialists do. But again, I'm pretty much the client is in charge of bringing their own stay-ups and kind of the variety that they look good in. This is a lot easier, of course, if we're doing bridal boudoir, because realistically, the majority of the shoot is going to be in a bridal lingerie anyway, and the honeymoon lingerie as well as the honeymoon night or the wedding night lingerie as well within things really. So just kind of those are the kind of bringers in. Props, as I mentioned already, the biggest thing for me is probably netting and drape, but we do have client bring in anything that is sentimental to them, especially if they're buying something for a loved one overseas or whatever it be, something that is personal to them. That prop could also that kind of has a relationship to their partner in one way or another. Posing wise, that has to be done to suit the client, and that's what we hope to cover in a dedicated episode, of course, of the 10 steps, is just looking at the posing for the different types of clientele coming through. But we always want to kind of minimize the problems. So if we've got things like a belly that the client is conscious of, we know about in advance what they like about themselves, what they don't like about themselves, because we're asking them. And then from that information, we can then create a shooting kind of idea of what we need to avoid and what we need to concentrate on as far as the posing is concerned. Accessories then, like jewelry, shoes, headdresses, necklaces, a variety of lipsticks, etc., is what is right for them. They are encouraged to be bringing in those things along with other kind of accessories for some kind of specialized kind of boudoir, especially when we start to look at our Boudoir Confidential and the likes of. Oh, wrong button. So let's just finish today off talking about the studio styling more than anything else. I just kind of mentioned about our 50 Shades kind of edginess. So as far as the kind of the basics, we're going to have an edgier, darker, moodier style of photography as one part of our styling as such, really. You can call these things whatever you want. one thing to make sure that you have got separation. Now, separation is easy to say most of the time when people have clothes on, but a separation light can be more difficult when you're using the likes of a kind of a body that is not contained by anything. So in other words, it just has a life of itself and it's going to hang and kind of move itself. So we need to actually separate with either a background or a lighter tone. But one of the things that is most common, at least with my boudoir photography, is a little bit use of the liquefy tool, just to nip and tuck little parts of the body or to emphasize things that the client really loves about themselves. As far as the edgier kind of photography is concerned, it doesn't have to be on a kind of a S&M side at all, but it can just be the mood and the styling, a little bit of kind of role play elements as well. Most of my boudoir photography, though, would be a softer and a sensual, more relaxed kind of photography rather than kind of a glamorous kind of glamour that we would be familiar with in the UK, the likes of 1970s, 1980s kind of page 3, more glamour rather than Hollywood glamour. So there's a definitive. In the UK, okay, we're coming into a generation now that don't understand or don't refer to glamour as what we would know it as from the 70s and 80s and early 90s with it. They would know more about the kind of the Kardashians glamour, the Hollywood glamour, the kind of the Instagram glamour, rather than actually more of a kind of a soft kind of I'm trying to avoid using the word porn, but I can't, but more of the kind of the soft porn element. So again, it's sensuality and softness. This is all about empowering women, and different women will be empowered in different ways. That's why the variety of styling has to be addressed depending on the different types of client that you've got and things, yes? So as far as the quirkiness is concerned, again, they will bring their own kind of individual look and feel, not only with their own lingerie, but any props that are kind of assigned to them. In other words, the props that mean things to them. So different people are going to bring in a vast different variety, and you've got to avoid being shocked. But again, chatting with the client, getting ready for your styling will kind of create it. So when I'm looking at the sensual styling, I kind of quite like, as a rule, a daylight effect. So I'm either going to shoot near a window, or I'm going to use a big light source covered in netting. And then if I want to bring a little bit more of a dappled light to the scene, I'll add some kind of gobo in front of another light to add kind of that fake effect kind of coming across the photograph itself. So just even put in a piece of cardboard with holes cut in it or stripes or whatever in front of a hard light source will create the kind of dynamic. Remember, the smaller the light source, the quicker the kind of the gobo effect will be created. Quirky, I tend to, with the quirkiness, tends to come a quirkiness in the light. That might be gels or a harder light source or snoots or whatever it would be, but that tends to actually just bring the styling together as far as I'm concerned. If we're doing something based around Halloween or a bit around a prop kind of style, like we're seeing in the girl on the bottom left-hand side, we can build a quick set. That includes different types of wallpaper that we can kind of quickly staple onto our portable walls, which we can move around the studio set as well, and that gives us a quick difference than having to actually invest into a permanent set for the whole time. Obviously, the more and more we like one thing, this is a cheap metallic paper, silver planks that I loved. It was an end of line, so I just bought the 2 rolls that were left, and that created a look. And then obviously we kind of just stapled it on to begin with, and then we kind of used it for a while and then threw it away. But even pinning things onto it or propping it or styling it in the background, you can create some sets which can be anything from a opulent hotel boutique look, going through to a little bit more of a quirky kind of more fashion styling of the shoot and things, really. But it's really down to yourself. For me, the bed plays a very, very big part as far as the boudoir photography is concerned, whether it's on a mattress on the floor or it's going to be on a bed, as it were. It's really down to the lighting and the set that I use. So both in Studio 2, we have a bed and we have the ability to actually just put the mattress actually straight onto the floor as well and basically create a different kind of look and feel. The only negative that I've got as far as Studio 2 is concerned, because we work from an old church, of course, we've got all the stained glass, which basically creates colour. That colour isn't evident, of course, in black and white photography, so I'm okay with that. But in the colour photography, of course, the stained glass will throw some patterns on very, very sunny days. Now, in Studio 2, when we get into the lighting section in a couple of weeks' time, obviously, at different times of day, you're going to get different effects. So in Studio 2, until around about 1 o'clock in summer, I've got hard sunlight coming through the Studio 2 big window. Once it goes past the kind of the 1 o'clock, depends on the kind of day, it goes to a completely soft light. So I tend to actually book in a younger clientele in the AM, and I tend to book in an older kind of clientele into the PM when the light is much softer. I prefer that kind of light for my style of photography. The two bottom images, though, where we're looking at against the light or with the light. So against the light is my preferred basis, where I'm always shooting towards the window, or if that was the fake set of the window behind, I'll be shooting towards it. Then I'd just be using the lights of a reflector to bounce some of the light actually onto the face, yes? Obviously, when the client turns themselves away from the light source, the exposure is going to change. I don't want to add an equal amount of flash onto the face to keep the set the same, because I am looking for that Sunday morning washed out effect. So then you'll find that some of the highlights are going to be almost blown out because you're increasing the exposure by around about a stop. Then the right-hand image, then, when we're talking about working with the light, they tend to actually be a little bit more kind of moodier, more tone, because obviously the sunlight is going to be what the exposure is based on. And obviously that will then, whether it's dappled, we would expose for the dappled light, or if we wanted certain parts of the whole set to be blown out, including some of the body, but we want to actually shade the face, then I can use a hand diffuser to take the actual shading away from the actual face. But as a rule, I'm using more against the light than actually with the sun behind my back to shoot. But again, it really depends. So as far as the studio styling, edgier, sensual and quirky, all three things I do. And then as far as the basics, I'm either going to use a set, which is either going to be a boudoir bedroom set, or it's going to be something quirky that I've put together. And then as far as the light is concerned, most of the time it's going to be against the light instead of with the light. Okie doke. So it's question time, Jay. Have we got questions coming through?
I have some questions about experience, but nobody's opened up apart from, there was a question here. You were talking about hotel rooms. Do you think that is, you mentioned about it earlier, obviously restrictions and everything with COVID. Do you think that is just a case of literally getting in touch and seeing what they can do?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a time you may never have again. And of course, the difficult part is when a hotel is locked down, it doesn't mean that the rest of businesses are locked down. What you might find, though, is because the hotel is locked down, it's not, in other words, not allowed to take any bookings, they might have restrictions on what staff they've got. So it might sound cheap in one way, the right time, but it could also be an expensive time because they haven't got anybody else there to actually change over the sheets and everything else with it. So it enter into a conversation But again, there's loads of small boutique hotels around, even some Airbnbs and everything else with it. But again, you must conform to your COVID protocols as well in shooting.
Brilliant. And obviously, we talked about studios. Obviously, you're working within your own restrictions there. You said earlier that you can't control people's obviously locations, as in shooting in their homes. Your initial reactions to difficulties in working in somebody's home in the current environment?
Okay, so again, there's going to be different things for different people, of course. That's the one thing that we've all learned in lockdown or restricted business practices. Not only have you got to think about safety for the client, but you also have to think about your own safety and your family as well and things. And going into a client's boudoir, as it were, might seem what is best for them. But of course, if you've got a household there as well, you are going into their facility. So if it was me and I was having to go into a client's home to shoot, I would probably be masked up. If the client is coming into a hotel suite scenario, we wouldn't be masked up at that point, not unless the hotel's protocol would be that you would have to be masked except for the client.
I know we're going to do dedicated sessions obviously on the lighting. The question that came in about the edgy style of shoots, do you have preferred modifiers to create those type of images?
Yeah, so a good question. That tap on the back, whoever asked that one anyway, would be a small reflector dish with barn doors on. So I like a very hard light source. I also like a small reflector dish with a honeycomb grid on. If I can find Elincron accessories, because I'm useless in what their real name is. So I get everything through the flash center, yeah, and I'd be looking at the accessories. In fact, I believe, even though I've got a couple of days off, Simon from the Flash Center is with the Academy today, are they not, Jay?
He is indeed. He's arrived not so long ago, and he's with us shooting this afternoon and tomorrow, yes.
Brilliant. Well, say hello to him from me anyway. I was just looking at grids. So it's more reflector dishes. I know we can get a little bit confused at times between the word reflector and reflector dishes, yes. But remember, reflector is what we refer to as a flat piece of material, foldable or not, or card, that will bounce light back. Whereas a reflector dish, how can I find the accessories on there? It's all soft boxes and everything else within things, really. Sorry, I can't find that for a minute. But I was looking at the grids and honeycombs. I was just trying to point out the one that they used to do a grid. This FS30, in fact, is still on my Christmas list. It's been on my Christmas list now, Jay, for about 3 or 4 years. And I absolutely love that. I borrowed it, not rented it even, but I borrowed it for a weekend once, and it was absolutely, we made a film with it as well. It was that, I wanted to see what it was like.
I'll see if I can get a mortgage for you then and get
oh my God, yeah, something like that anyway. Oh, there you go. Okay, so look, an 18 centimeter reflector dish there with the 30-degree grid, yeah, 50 quid. So that is, or £40 plus VAT. That's one of it that I have. I was hoping I was going to show you the kits though. So there's the barn doors for the L mount again. Do you know what? I forgot that for an L. Sorry. I'm going to have a look at them. Oh, it's terrible when you got a day off. You look at photographic stuff to buy. Okay, so there's all the different reflectors that you can get for the different size reflector dishes. So remember, the 18 centimeter is the size of the reflector dish itself. The 30 degree, the 20 degree, and the 12 degree is how tight the honeycomb is. Now, unless I'm wrong, because it's been a long time since I've bought reflector dishes. Okay, so there's the the barn doors I use all the time. And there's the Ellencrom 21 centimeter honeycomb grid kit there on the top. Can you see that okay, Jay?
Yeah, we can see that.
Brilliant. So this little page here, just these kind of two little products alone, the barn doors and the 21 centimeter reflector dish, are probably the best things that I could encourage you to buy if you're looking to give an edgier light within the boudoir itself. Got to have a look at that little Fresnel. I forgot about that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Some advice, or somebody asked about the client and fake tanning. I asked then the question, did you refer to in post? And yes, best to advice to the
Don't fake
client.
tan, for God's sake. Honest to God, if you're doing white sheets, you'll never get the frigging stuff out. Self-tanning is a no-no for me. All right? Do not self-tan for at least 7 days prior to the session. Do not, because you'll never get it out the frigging sheets, I'm telling you now. Experience. And I'm not on about me self-tanning, I'm on about the client, of course, yeah?
We've got some questions coming in now, mate. Do you shoot wide aperture to stop down to get more of the figure in focus, especially in smallest rooms?
I don't. So I'm pretty much shooting prime lens. We'll talk about this on the shooting anyway part. I pretty much shoot on prime lens, 50 and 85 as a rule. I do use the medium zoom lens 24 to 105 at some stages. That's because I really need a lens between 24 and 35, which I don't have. So it's not as if I can't buy a prime lens of that. I just find that work in between those two is where my mid kind of range wide angle I need is. So I'm usually photographing around about f4.
Brilliant. This is a good question. Actually, I don't know if we discussed it. As a male photographer, should I be requesting that the model or the client has a chaperone, or would you have somebody with you?
Okay, so I never shoot without a chaperone unless it's a paid model. Okay, so with a client, I have an assistant, which will usually double up as the makeover or the hair person anyway, or an assistant. And I don't think that is just for male photographers. In fact, I think in the present climates, even female photographers, I think it's a good idea that we protect ourselves in the kind of the world that we live in today. So as a male photographer, I would encourage you, please, to actually make sure that you are safe. Basically, I won't have a client boyfriend or friend in the shoot at all. This is not a bit of a giggle. Okay, there would have to be an extreme reason why the partner is involved is there in the shoot. So we do couples as well, but that is a different thing, of course, because then it's a couple shoot rather than it is a kind of a chaperone.
Brill. So I've got a question here. It's a good one. I just want to try and make sure I word it to you correctly. So the gentleman is referring to, as we've discussed, about working, in hotels and possibly having to obviously pay to use them, as well as a makeup artist. So he generally finds that it comes with a makeup artist and a hotel cost anywhere between 150 and 200 pounds. So his experience is 200 pounds to cover the cost of what it costs him. But he has, I presume, in a closer area, a studio that also offers a boudoir experience at 130 pounds. Whereas his sales are cheaper than theirs. He finds it really hard to compete with them because he can't match their costings. Does that make sense?
It does, but again, you're thinking of a one-off session rather than spreading the cost during all 3 sessions in a day. So the mistake you're making is you're only thinking that you're having 3 sessions on in a day or 4 sessions on in a day. What I would tend to actually cost it out across is 4 sessions in a day. And if for any reason you only end up with 3, basically you're only a little bit out of pocket with costs rather than basically everything out of pocket. So I would try and actually spread the cost across the whole day and not just the one session. That I agree with you. That's when it gets a little bit more difficult. I still wouldn't really worry about a studio down the road offering a studio session for X amount. You know, if you were going to book a Premier Inn or a Hilton, yeah, you're an idiot, you know, because that's not what I'm on about. I'm on about a small boutique hotel room or a quirky Airbnb kind of thing with it. It's amazing what you can book, honestly.
That's all the questions I have about Boudoir and the
Good
photography.
questions
I've got a
there.
couple of
Round of
experience.
applause for the questions coming through today. Very well done. It's going to come through that when we talk about chaperoning is absolutely key. And you could be an all-male business. I'm okay with that. However, you still need a chaperone as such. Jay knows that we have 2 CCTV cameras in Studio 1. We have 1 in Studio 2. So the first thing that the client is made aware of is that there is a CCTV running. We point it out to them, and we explain to them what it is there for as well. Okay, so remember little things like that, and we have to have CCTV running. We have no choice to do with our insurances and everything else. That's not about boudoir photography, but at least there is that kind of secondary. But remember, if anybody's ever been to our studios, you know, as you're going up the main stairs, it says CCTV in operation, 10 steps to heaven, you're almost there now, smile, you're on camera, and all that kind of thing. But it's telling them that it reminds me as I'm going up the stairs to be telling the client as well within things, really. Obviously, it's a bit different for us when we're recording or videoing a client. They can tell it, you know. But yeah, you know, we'll be talking across Academy next year at some stage, I'm sure, about introducing a little bit of video into your boudoir shoots as well. We'll look forward to that post the end of the summer and things. Let's get out of this unnormality and kind of come back into a little bit more normality at the end of 2021 and things, really. Anything else, Jay?
No, that's all the Boudoir questions that I've got for you, mate. Just a couple about experience, but I think you're going to chat about that.
I hadn't planned to, but if you want me to, I will. Next session, we're going to be looking at lighting for boudoir in a generalization. I'm going to be showing you all the different kind of lighting, what I like, okay? And I think if you can cherry pick out of what I do, what you like, because I do quite a lot of stuff, yeah? But if you cherry pick out of what I do, I think you're going to find yourself that you're going to pick up a style and you'll be up and running. I would like somebody at some stage to ask me the questions of what would you do if you're starting all over again? That's not today, it's cheating, all right? But at some stage, before the end of this series, you need to ask me that question. The reason being is I think there's a reason to create a series on the Academy, not so much webinars, but a film series of what I would do in all the different genres of photography if I was beginning from scratch again, because there is so much that you learn as you mature through the age of shooting and how many clients that you shoot with. It's like kind of what things that you learn in the sales room. And I think there's a whole series there. And in the talk photography thing that we're hoping to get going through 2021, we should be looking at those things as well. So hopefully at some stage I'm going to get somebody who goes, okay, on the question, so what would you do if you're doing it all again? All right, not do it today. Don't be smart ass. Right, Jay, I'm yours. Questions are done then. What do you want to talk about? Shall I switch off record?
Yes, please.
DT, audience view, sharing, stop recording.